Welcome back from the break. It is now time for conversations. And this week is a couples edition. Super excited for you guys to meet the couple that I'm talking about. They are a little seasoned, um, or maybe I should say they're a little mature, but their relationship is very new. Let's go find out more about them. I am going to be speaking to Dr. Peggy Elliott Pugh and Mr. Ken Pugh. They are a wonderful couple. Dr. Peggy is an evangelist. She is an author. She has taught and mentored so many church leaders, not just in the United States, but even here in Kenya as well, and in several other countries. And she is also a counselor and a consultant. And her husband, Mr. Ken Pugh, is now happily retired, but he has a master's degree in consulting and psychology services. And he also has 20 years experience in adult corrections facility and as a parole officer. How are you two? How are you doing?
Fine.
We're great. This coming Saturday will make our second week of marriage.
Wow! Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is amazing. For starters, tell me what Minnesota is like and what it's been for you too, like in the house.
Wow, being quarantined, one of the conclusions we came to, it is best to be quarantined with someone that you love or that you like versus being alone.
Yes. Yes.
That is so true.
So, yeah, we've had pretty deep conversations about many things, and it's been fun. We've cooked together, we've prayed together. What else? Bible study together. So it's been good.
That's nice to hear. That's so good. You guys are keeping busy.
We are.
I'm excited to get more into the nitty-gritties of what those deep conversations have been about.
All right.
What's it like in Minnesota? Are you leaving the house to go shopping? Are you going to the supermarket to get to go for walks in the park, or are you limited to your house?
We try to limit our outside activities as much as possible. And like, for example, we will go and we will plan a day, like a week, to do the things that we have to do. So we don't have to keep going out and coming back. We can take care of most of our business, such as going to the store and or to the cleaners or whatever else, all in one day.
Dr. Peggy Elliott, I read your bio when my producer sent it to me. And when I got to the end, I was tired. I was like, wow, she's done a lot. You've been a very, very, very busy lady. You have been in full-time ministry. I calculated because it's from 1984. That is 30 years this year.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for starters, I have to ask, because you're in charge of so many congregations and you've been training church leaders, both locally in Minnesota and internationally, what has the difference been like for you being contained at home? How are you able to still be a business leader?
Well, it's been a time of rest. One of the things that God has done by bringing Ken into my life is because there are so many different areas of ministry that I touch. At times, I get a little overwhelmed. And so Ken is very much project oriented. And so it's been a blessing to sit down with him. And I gave him all the different things that I do. And his suggestion was, let's just take the top 2 or 3 and work on those for this period of time. So it's really been a time of getting focused and refocused, as a matter of fact. Things that I did in 1984, those are not some of the same directions of the ministry now. In 1984, I was doing racial and cultural diversity training in churches.
Right.
And then it evolved over a period of time into the role and function of an apostle overseeing churches. Okay. So it's really been a time of getting great clarity.
That's really good to hear. Wow. Ken, kudos to you. Thanks for keeping our friend, Dr. Peggy, grounded
Well,
and focused.
one of the things that I shared with when we were getting married is one of my vows is to make sure that I support her ministry 100%, uh, physically, emotionally, financially, and spiritually. I believe that we came together. Well, that was one of the reasons we were brought together, was to support each other, and me especially to support this prayer warrior right here in any way that I could to do her ministry.
That is amazing. Dr. Peggy, where did you find Ken? On which street? Where did you bump into him? Just ladies,
Oh
just
my,
make
it
our
wasn't a
way.
street. As a matter of fact, that's a part of our testimony. My son came over one day during Christmas time,
Mhm.
and he had his own catering service, and we were talking, and he brought me some smoked turkey legs. I kissed him, hugged him, said goodbye. He said, "Wait a minute, Mama, hold up." Now his tone of voice was all kind of wrong. And I said, "What the world is wrong with you?" He said, "I just came from over a friend's house, and this man walks up to me and says, 'Is this a picture of your mother?'" He said, "Mama, my voice got low, my back got bristled." He said, and then he wanted to know where he got the picture from. And he said, the man said, well, she was on a dating site. And I'm like, oh no,
Oh,
nobody was supposed to know that. It was only supposed to be for a week. And he kept saying, "Mama, you're a minister, Mama." I said, well, I'm not that bad looking. I'm a little articulate, Corey. And he said, and I said it was a friend of mine, and I did the same thing. And so I never expected anybody in the Twin Cities to ever see it. And then he did.
Yeah, it was very interesting. We have a tradition in our family that when someone is ill or has surgery, they
Mhm.
always come over to this house and or spend a week or two in recovery. And my daughter had just recently had a kidney transplant, and she had just been over to the house. That was her first day, and we were going. I had told her that I was going to start to date. I had been single for about a year and a half. My previous wife of 45 years had passed away. And I had just shared with my children that I was going to start to date. And so when she was sitting there, we were talking about things. I pulled up this dating site and I showed her this picture. I said, "This is a beautiful woman. I think I'd like to contact her." And she said, "Dad, I know her." I said, "What?" She said,
What?
"I know her, and her son is coming by to deliver some smoked turkey wings next Tuesday." I said, "What?" I couldn't believe it. And
Oh
they
my
came
God.
anyway. Yeah,
Mhm.
and anyway, then she says, me and her son went to school, graduated from high school together 20 something years. We just happened to meet where he was showing off some of his goods at one of the grocery stores near us a week or two, and he's bringing me over some of his smoked turkey wings. So he comes to the door, and
Yeah.
after they take care of business, I said, "Young man, can I ask you a personal question?" He said, "Sure." And I pulled up the site and I had a picture there of Peggy, and I said, "Is this your mother?" And he looked at me real strong and real strange, and he said, "Yes." "And what do you want to know about my mother for?" His voice changed and everything. I said, "Well, I saw her picture on this dating site, and I wanted to know whether or not it was her or not. I didn't want to be." And as soon as I said that, and his mouth came open, and he had this strange look, I wish I could have pulled back those words, because I don't think he knew she was on a dating site.
Wow.
That's how I met him.
That is an amazing story though, because it's like it was meant to be exactly when you were looking for each other. You found each
It
other and for your
was.
children. Such a blessing.
It is. It is. And we had no idea how much our paths had crossed. I knew two of his daughters, but I didn't know him.
Wow.
And then a third daughter, I talked to, and she said, "Don't you remember my dad gave you a tour of the group home? And he asked me to stay with you with the students that were there for a couple of nights." I had totally forgotten about that. We
Oh,
even lived
wow.
next, we lived next door to one another. and didn't know one another. So this is
So
all such a God thing and God's timing.
if you two lived next to each other and you did not find each other, people should just stop window shopping for the one. Just move in your life. Just do life, and you will meet them when you need to meet them. But I do like that you were on a dating site, because that's how you saw it.
Well, I guess that's the way to go. And Susan, we really want to say this in terms of a testimony.
Yeah.
How old do you think I am, Susan?
I mean, you've been working for 36 years. So I'm going to say definitely over 50. I think that's a safe guess.
Yes, I'm 67.
Oh, nice.
And Ken will be 80 in June.
Wow.
And our testimony to give people hope is don't stop waiting. Don't stop trusting in God. I asked God, because I had some relationships that were not God.
Yeah.
And I said, in the second half of my life, God, if you could allow me to meet the man, if I would have waited for you to choose him for me, who would he be? And it's Ken.
That is such a good prayer as well. It just gives God good direction. I think also sometimes our prayers get lost in the way because we're not giving him good direction.
Yes.
That's superb direction. That's a powerful prayer.
After my wife passed away, I lived alone for almost a year and a half, and I found out that even though I could do it, I didn't like it very much.
Right.
My life was empty, and there was a void in my heart that needed to be filled, and I had to make a transition in regards to, along with family members also, and remembering that. I didn't lose any love for the last relationship.
Yeah.
The good Lord gave me some love to share with Peggy, and I've been blessed to be able to do that. I didn't know that it was going to be Peggy, but I would pray that I would have an opportunity to love somebody, and I would love them just as much as they would love me for the rest of my life. I needed that. I could live alone, but I didn't like it. I wanted to live with someone who I could love and they could love me back.
Oh my gosh. Yes, Ken. Yes. In fact, Dr. Peggy has written several self-help books. I think you should do us a kindness this 2020 and write one of your own as well, because I can see you have a lot to say.
Thank you.
I like what you said about you did spend that time alone and you realized that you could do it, and you decided that you didn't want to. You knew that there's
Yes.
better. You knew that there's somebody that you can share love with. So with that, what has it been like for you to, as a reasonably new couple, to be together in the house in quarantine? Are there any new quirks or habits that you've learned about your partner that you like or you don't like?
Well, it started out a little rough. We had a lot of ups and downs, but now they're getting like this. It's not as deep as they used to be. We're learning how to live together and how to love each other because we come from different backgrounds, somewhat different backgrounds and experiences, and we have to learn how to match those up so that we don't end up quarreling all the time. And so we're learning. It's a learning process, and we're grateful for the opportunity.
Susan, one of the things, it ended up being one of my vows, but one of the things that Ken asked me if I would do in our relationship, if and when there was conflict, most people, myself included, most people, even him, will want to leave. You just leave the situation, and at times you need to do that. But what he asked is, if when there's conflict, that I not walk away from him, but walk toward him.
Oh, wow. I like that.
And that to me is so deep, because when you're hurting, or if you feel rejected or misunderstood, all you tend to want to do is get out of the presence of the one that you feel is misunderstanding you. And there's something very, very powerful about staying. Now, one of the things that I say to women, or men is if somebody's really, really angry and saying, leave me alone, leave me alone. Don't keep pursuing them.
Right.
Leave them alone until they come back. One of the things that we're seeing with the quarantine, at least in Minnesota, there's an increase in domestic violence.
Yes.
There's an increase in child abuse.
Yeah.
There's an increase in alcoholism.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when you're in the same place day after day after day after day, while it can be loving and kind, at some point, just naturally, there's going to be some degree of conflict. It can be over, I wanted bacon instead of sausage.
Yeah.
Or when you're in a new relationship and you're learning about one another, what I tended to do when I'm upset is I get quiet. I say nothing. And
you say something, you say you're okay, but I know
yeah,
you're not.
yeah, okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ask, are you? Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. And the reason why I get quiet is because in my lifetime, whether it be in my growing up, at church or at work, I've seen people literally kill other people's spirit with their tongue. And the reason why I get quiet is I'm praying and I say, God, what am I feeling? What is it that I want to say? What do you want me to say? Because I don't want to cause any more damage. And once those words come out, you can't take them back. You can apologize, but you can't take them back.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Now, let's go back to you working in the ministry. That is what you have done for most of your life, Dr. Peggy.
Yes.
There has been, right now on social media, we're seeing a lot of posts where people are expressing the feeling of being abandoned. And what I would want to ask you is, for people that are struggling with their faith, maybe they're wondering, you know, how could God allow all of this to happen and for all of these people to perish? What is the advice that you would give people who are struggling with their faith right now?
One of the things that I say to people who are feeling abandoned, I ask them first, what does that feel like? And then I ask them, what do you mean by being abandoned? I ask the feeling first, and then the thinking question second. When they can begin to identify that they're feeling lonely versus alone, so I help them sort of sort through what do they mean, how are they feeling, and then third, how are they handling it? Because we're seeing an increase in suicidal thoughts, an increase in suicide. There's even been doctors through the quarantine who felt so overwhelmed and lonely at the same time, they've committed suicide.
Yeah.
And so I talk about how can you, then we come up with a plan. Do you want to continue to feel abandoned? Because believe it or not, some people enjoy being a victim. And so some people will just want to stay in that place. Most people don't. And I'll ask the question, if you could do anything you wanted to right now to not feel abandoned, what would it be? And so I try to get them to dream and to think at a higher level.
Yeah.
And then I say, write those things down. Now look at the ones that are most possible to do. Abandonment for most people is total isolation with no hope of having any kind of communication. And I say, there are people that you can call, there are things that you can write or drawing or something. So they begin to fill up that empty well that's on the inside of them. If I'm hearing in their voice that they're contemplating suicide, thought about suicide, then I'll ask them that. And ask them what would need to happen so that they didn't take their own life.
Right.
Ken and I were talking the other day. My father committed suicide almost 50 some years ago. And then I became interested in suicide and as a family therapist, and found out that most children, when they commit suicide, which to me, that's even an oxymoron that a child would.
Yeah.
It's because they see no hope for the future. A boy whose girlfriend quit him, or vice versa, or a child that is being sexually molested or abused and sees no way out.
Yeah.
But most times when an adult commits suicide, they say it's because they want those left behind to feel guilty. Now, I have to be careful with that definition or that understanding,
Mm-hmm.
because, of course, it's not always true.
Right.
Some have no hope and see no hope.
Yeah.
And here's the key, Susan, bottom line. How's your relationship with Jesus going? What are you reading in the Word? I firmly believe that when you listen to music or sing, it
Mm-hmm.
is impossible to praise and be depressed at the same time. So I
Right.
suggest to them that they listen to some music too.
Yeah. It's a really good idea. I like that. And thank you, because you have literally given a very clear step-by-step guide that I know will really help a lot of our viewers if they're struggling with that, or if they have a family member that feels that they're struggling with that at the moment. Um, in Kenya and like in most countries, of course, people aren't currently able to go to church. They're not able to go to a temple. They're not able to go to the mosque. And that's because, of course, social gatherings are not something that we are currently involved in because of the virus. So there's been a lot of live streaming for the churches that can do it, but then there are church leaders who are in areas where that's not something that's feasible. And they are feeling, like they can't do their work. They can't do the Lord's work. And they also cannot earn an income, because at the end of the day, it is work. What advice do you have for church leaders in that position? Because we have some church leaders here in Kenya that have expressed themselves and they're really starting to feel defeated.
Oh, that's a huge one. I take a look at what do you have available to you to be able to continue doing the Lord's work.
Mm-hmm.
We've had to become very creative all across the world. It's not just the US, it's not just to Africa, it's all over the world. We've had to learn to become creative. And Susan, there was something that came to me, is that we actually are getting back to what we should have been doing.
Mm-hmm.
I do a Thursday night healing tea with Dr. Peggy Pugh now. And I asked the question, what are some of the lessons you've learned while you've been quarantined? And one of the young men that I used to mentor said that the church is being turned right side up.
Okay.
And we had some discussion about that. And so what I say to pastors is, what is it that you had been doing when you had time to do anything any way you wanted to? And you know the call on your life. How then can you still be effective in that call? You just have to get creative about it. Most people have the internet. Now, not everyone has the internet.
Yeah.
So not everyone can get on Sunday morning or Wednesday night Bible study. And so then what I talk about is if they have a phone, and I'm thinking about people who don't even have a phone.
Yeah.
The, it's it be and here's what I found: most people that don't have the internet and phone already are closer to God than most of us are.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's when we have so much technology, so many tools available to us. And this is how I believe it's being turned right side up. God has taken away our idols.
Mm-hmm.
Now we know that Satan causes sickness. God, if we depend on him, will get the glory and the testimony out of that. But our idols of shopping, our idols of watching TV, our idols of doing nothing, our idols of always eating out in restaurants and spending phenomenal money. Thou shalt have no other God before me. So
Yeah.
I believe more people are reading the word now.
Yes.
I believe more people are trusting in God now. I know people's prayer life has increased. You can see it online.
I like that. Yeah, that's true. And you're right. We have no choice. We just have to get creative. Like we're currently getting
Yes.
creative with, still doing our jobs and being able to do this interview. Right now, we just don't really have a choice. And we do have to be introspective within ourselves. And
look at our own relationships. So I really like that. Mr. Pugh, you have extensive experience working in the corrections facilities and even as a parole officer, which is usually helping people assimilate back into life after being in a corrections facility. So you have a lot of experience, I assume, with conflict resolution. And Dr. Peggy touched on it a little bit when she even talked about how gender violence, the numbers have gone up. And that's just not just in America, here in Kenya as well, it's an issue. So I want to know, other than walking towards someone when you are feeling upset or you're feeling very angry, do you have other tips and tricks that you can help our viewers with when it comes to resolving conflict in the home?
Well, one of the things, the first thing I always try to do when I work with people who have conflict is remember where I came from. In other words, I don't try to make myself look better or feel better than that person, because I'm not perfect and I've made some mistakes also. So I want to make sure that people feel that I'm on the same level that they are, so they can feel comfortable about sharing just where they're at. In other words, I want to meet people where they're at. And I want to be comfortable with the person on the street who has the worst addiction, just as comfortable with him or her as I do with the judge that's going to make a decision about their lives. And I'm able to do that because I don't pretend that I'm something that I'm not. I'm an honest person, a person that's had a lot of difficulty. I had at one point in my life difficulty with alcohol and drugs. I've been clean and sober now for 44 years.
Wow.
So I can relate to people who have had difficulty and conflict, especially in relationship to the use of mind-altering chemicals. And what I tell them to do is, first of all, I believe in prayer and having faith, and I think people need to stop and think, like Peggy did, shared with you, and start trusting more in the prayers and the faith that you have to begin with.
Yeah.
And she's taught me a lot about that, about prayer and having faith, about trust in the faith that you have in God. And that helps a lot. I like to start there. And I found out that a lot of times when people get into trouble, that's the one aspect of their life that they've probably forgotten or not worked on as well as they should, and that's their spirituality. It sounds a little, I don't know, maybe unorthodox that a person who is in trouble with the law, that I first recommend that they look at their spirituality, but that's where a lot of times where it starts, is that aspect of their life. I believe that people have everybody has 3 or 4 aspects that we all have. We have our physical self, our emotional self, and intellectual self, and our spiritual self. And I believe that if we don't pay attention to one of them, it causes problems with the rest. For example, like a car that runs on 6 cylinders, if one cylinder isn't working properly, the car will still run, but it won't run as well.
Right.
So I always encourage people to pay attention to those 4 areas of their life, and then pick one of those to work on that doesn't seem to be working as effectively as they could.
That's solid advice. Thank you so much, Mr. Pugh and Dr. Peggy. And I'm looking at the time, and our 26 minutes are almost up. But before we go, I want you guys to give your last word. I want you guys to advise couples according to your own experience and your own journey. What would you tell all the couples watching us right now? What would you tell them to hold on to at this time of quarantine?
I would say prayer and faith. And be careful what you pray for, because you may just get it in abundance.
I would say find it within yourself through the eyes of Jesus to have hope and enjoy life. There's so many people who are miserable, but I would say as a couple, their strengths. One of the things I like about Africa, I learned this in South Africa, they say marry your second self. And having been married before to the opposite of self, I know opposites attract. But if you're in a marriage and you're doing fine and it's healthy, keep doing that. But if you're struggling, ask God how to teach you to fall back in love again. That's one of the things that people ask us. How do you fall back in love if you're already married? You've been married 34,000 years. And I can't give you what I don't have. I can't give Ken what I don't have. And I love being in love. And I love enjoying life. And so I get to be a woman. He and I have talked many times about, as a minister and a female, people don't expect you to be feminine too much.
Yeah.
But
Why?
I love, well, because I think we have a history of it being a male-dominated profession.
Right.
And so people expect you to always be hard and cold. I love to shop. I love perfume. I love lotion. I love bright colored clothes. I love being a woman. And God is using Ken to let me be able to show more of the woman side of me. Yes, I'm an apostle. I thank God for that. And all of those things. But at home, I get to be the woman and not have to operate in those roles.
One more thing is the first meeting we had, the first date. Um, I, 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 I like to think that I listen real well. And I heard Peggy say that one of the things she was looking for in a relationship
Uh-huh.
is a soft place to land. And that's what I provide. I try to provide that for her every day is no matter how busy she is, and you've described some of the things that she does, no matter how busy she gets during the day, I always try to provide her with that soft place to land in the evening.
Oh, wow. That is incredible. Thank you so much, guys. You guys have inspired me. I am not getting married if my marriage is not like this. I've made a decision.
He's already ready for you. God's just got to bring you together.
Thank you so much. I would like you guys to share your social media pages, and if you have the place where people can get your couple counseling services as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it is, my website is Dr. Dr. Peggy, PEGGYELLIOTT.org. I kept the last name Elliott because so much of my ministry is in that. For a
Name.
telephone number, oh, and Healing Tea with Dr. Peggy. They can go on Facebook. And every morning at 7 o'clock on Facebook Live, I'm praying, we're praying against the python spirit, which God told me is the primary root spirit to corona. Pythons don't bite you, they don't crush you, they constrict your airways. And so every morning at 7 o'clock, 7 Central Time, telephone number would be 316-305-5673, and can get it, either one of us.
That is amazing. Thank you so much to you,
Thank you.
Mr. Pugh and Mrs. Pugh, Dr. Peggy. You guys have been amazing. Have an incredible, blessed day, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, what an incredible couple. There's so many dots of wisdom that they dropped, but um, I will repeat two that really hit home with me, and that was when they are at conflict as a couple. If it's not extreme, if the person is not begging to be left alone, when you're feeling some type of way about your significant other, instead of walking away, try maybe walking towards them. I really like that. And I also really liked what Ken had to say when he said that when he met Peggy, she was looking for a soft place to land, and that's exactly what he did. So for you ladies, one, you need to know what you're looking for. But for you men as well, you need to know that you can provide it. Such an incredible, inspiring couple. Tell me what you think about it using the hashtag KTN Life and Style on Twitter. Talk to me directly as well if you like at @strub_. On Instagram, you can find me at Surah_Common, and on Facebook under Surah Common. Follow our KTN home pages as well. Now we're gonna go jam to music and enjoy the rest of KTN Life and Style Virtual Edition.